Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football. Welcome back to your Tuesday night live stream. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by fellow lifetime Longhorns, young prodigy CJ Vogel, and the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Bobby Burton joining us as well here for a Tuesday night live stream. We will talk about the college football playoff rankings, which will be coming out here momentarily, so we'll get to those at one point in the show. We're also expecting a very special guest from Aggie Land. Billy Liucci is going to join us a little bit later on in the show as well. And we have some national award finalists for this Longhorn football team. Jahdae Barron, congratulations to him. He's a Thorpe Award finalist, and also Kelvin Banks is an Outland Award finalist. So we'll get to both of those conversations coming up here momentarily. And of course, all of your questions, your comments, we'll address as many of them as we can. Super chats jump to the front of the line. You can interrupt the show at any time. And of course, we're talking plenty of Texas A&M hate week right here on Texas Football. All right, gentlemen, right now, how you feeling? Texas A&M, getting closer and closer. Starting with you, Bobby. I mean, it's been a while since you've having to have as a fan and now as an analyst had to get ready for this game. How do you feeling on a Tuesday before Texas A&M?
You know, I think Texas has a lot of reasons to be confident in this game. I think that Quinn Ewers' health is obviously a focal point, though, in between now and then. I also think the storyline is huge. Going back to A&M for the first time in 13 years is huge. And it's a rekindling of a rivalry. I was watching this little documentary earlier today, and it was about the best Thanksgiving rivalries, you know, and A&M Texas wasn't included on.
Oh, wow.
That just sucks. And it's indicative of how much it sucks. And I'm glad that that's over. I mean, I really am. And what A&M's going to go play? I mean, I don't even remember who they played. But Texas is going to try to make Baylor or Texas Tech a Thanksgiving rival. That doesn't really work, you know. No offense to those two schools, but this doesn't have the sex appeal or the appeal, I guess, of that kind of rivalry. So I'm more than anything, I'm happy about that. I do know that this is a game that can go either way a lot of times. Unlike, I will say this, and Rod, I want to get yours and CJ's take on it. This is a game that usually there is a better team by now. So OU and Texas happens early enough in the season.
Yeah.
You don't know the teams really well yet. I mean, they're still trying to figure out, even the teams are trying to figure out who the heck they are. But Texas and Texas A&M, when they play later in the season, you typically know what those two teams are.
Yep.
And right now, if I had to say that, I mean, I think they're pretty evenly matched overall. And so I look forward to a pretty hardcore football game on Saturday. That's what I'm wanting, actually. I want one of those that reintroduces the rivalry the right way. I really do.
Sound like you're leaning toward, I know we're not doing score predictions. Sound like you're leaning toward a close matchup, at least right now, early on.
Well, look, I will say this. It's not so much a close matchup, and it could be a close matchup, but it's going to be a hard-fought game, period. So it could be 2 scores. It could be 1 point. I don't know about my score prediction to your suggestion, Rod, but I absolutely think there's going to be some haymakers thrown. You know what I mean? That's the feeling I get, just because, I mean, look, A&M's got some dudes up front now. They got some real dudes. I think Texas does too. You know, so that's what I'm looking forward to.
CJ, what are your thoughts Tuesday during Texas A&M week? Hell, at least I'm old enough to have experienced this a little bit. Back when this was going on, CJ, you was just a young pup, man. So what are your feelings going into this matchup?
Man, I was 14 when this game went away.
Man.
So I have some memories of it, right? I remember either being really happy or really upset on Thanksgiving Day, maybe throwing some things if it didn't go the Longhorns' way. I'm sure my parents can attest to some pillows chunked all over the house, some broken pictures on the wall. Point being, I'm glad the game is back, and I'm glad I'm to a point now where I can fully appreciate the back and forth, right? Because for the last decade plus, you know, it's only been on timelines. It's only been on tweets. It's only been on Instagram. It's only been on Facebook. It's only been on the hypothetical. And so we'll finally be able to crown a champion. We'll finally be able to have that year-long hatred build up again until you play them again, or that year-long victory lap, which is what, in my opinion, helps make rivalry so special. It's like walking out of the Cotton Bowl each year, either feeling like you're on top of the world or you want the season to end, right? So that's going to be really special. And I think it's going to be magnified 10 times just in the sense that it's the first one in quite some time. But right now, Rod, it's Tuesday. I'm trying not to do a paralysis by analysis right now. I'm trying not to go over the top. I think both teams match up well with one another with what they like to do, especially offensively, get after the passer, contain a rushing quarterback. Secondary for Texas, obviously, something that I think is something that will play into their favor as well. So we'll see exactly where I end up. I got the tweaks in the algorithm right now. It's in the shop. So I'm ready to get that back out and see what we can get later on this week.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's a rivalry game. I know how crazy this game can be, so I'm a little bit, a little anxious and a little reluctant to be overconfident for Texas going into this matchup. And of course, there's the question about Quinn Ewers and his health, which we'll get into that conversation a little bit too. But let's start with the good news on the 40 acres, guys. We do have some national award finalists for the Longhorns. Congratulations, by the way, to both Jahdae Barron and to Kelvin Banks. Jahdae Barron, a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, along with Malachi Starks and Caleb Downs. We can kind of start there. And then Kelvin Banks, shout out to Kelvin Banks, who's a finalist for the Outland Trophy Award, given out to the best. It's the best interior defensive lineman, the best offensive lineman, the Allen Award. They kind of keep expanding kind of the definition and the criteria for it. Let's start with Jahdae Barron, though. You see it right there. And thank you very much, Matthew, for pulling that up. Jahdae Barron makes it as a Thorpe Award finalist. What are the odds, gentlemen, that another Thorpe Award comes home to the 40 acres? I'm starting to feel real good about it.
What are the stats for Downs and Starks, CJ? Because
you put it out.
You got to think that 4 interceptions is going to mean a little something here.
You would think, right? And of course, and that was kind of the conversation with the buckets too, with the snub of Anthony Hill. You got a couple of linebackers up there that don't have a single forced turnover on the season. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then I see it again with the finalists here. So statistically, it's hard not to go with Jahdae Barron. I think as a corner specifically, the 4 interceptions, here's the graphic I put up earlier today. No interceptions for Caleb Downs, only 1 for Malachi Starks. I know they're playing safety, but hey, that's got to mean something, right? The big impactful plays have to mean something. The big moments when you have 2 picks against Carson Beck, when you go head to head against your big opponents, how do you play in those games? I think Jahdae Barron has a really good case, and you see some of the numbers. Hey, right now that looks really good for the one corner on the sheet right now. Jahdae's got to feel pretty solid about the chances of bringing that Thorpe back home to Austin. Rod Babers.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I right now I do think he's gonna win the Thorpe. I thought when he was a semifinalist, I thought it'd be between him and Travis Hunter, is what I said. Travis Hunter didn't even make it as a finalist. I know Deion Sanders probably has some choice words for the Thorpe Award committee about that one. But what are your thoughts, Bobby? You've seen some great ones here on the 40 acres. Looks like Jahdae Barron may be ready to climb. I got my all-time DBU rankings. I'm gonna be working on those rankings after this season. And I got to put Jahdae Barron up toward, the top of that list now, especially if he comes home with the Thorpe.
I'll tell you what. So tell me what you think, Rod B. And I'm not going to put you in this list. But is Jahdae Barron as smart a football player and he's not necessarily as instinctive as Earl Thomas, but he may be as smart as him. Maybe Quandre Diggs and him are very similar from an intelligence of playing the game standpoint. I'm trying to remember if I can think of a player that combined football IQ with his skill set. Like I'll give you an example. Michael Griffin, pretty smart football player, right? In my opinion.
Yeah.
A little bit more athletic than Jahdae. More of a striker, a little faster, I think. Michael Huff, very fast, learned the game over time. I just, I would love to know what your ranking would be of him, actually, because I see a very, very good player, great college player, I don't know that he's in the pantheon or has the athleticism of a Quentin Jammer, or you know what I mean, where he's going to be this first round dude.
Agreed.
You know, but production side, maybe he's in that category. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about NFL projections, it's an entirely different conversation. My DBU rankings are actually based on accomplishments at Texas. I don't even consider what you did in the NFL. It's
okay.
not.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't, because it is a different conversation. You're right. You got to test as an athletic freak, and then that'll increase your draft stock. I think Jahdae Barron is going to be a pro. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Early round draft pick, I don't know, because the early rounds of the NFL draft are for freaks. And you just named some of them. Quentin Jammer, freak. Michael Huff, freak. Michael Griffin was a freak of nature. So I'm with you about the smart players. I do think in terms of football intelligence, he's one of the smartest football. I mean, the guy wants to be a defensive coordinator when he's done playing the game of football. I think he approaches the game that way too, and has a student kind of a student-like approach to the game, like to being a student of it. I call it football theory. He is a football theorist out there on the field, and I've called him a football investigator because of the way that he deciphers clues pre-snap, and then is able to, in a very fearless way, be able to diagnose it post-snap, and then without hesitation, without any. I mean, there is, in my opinion, for him, there are a lot of guys they question, and they oftentimes, as a defensive back, you'll question what you see, you'll question it, and then that hesitation oftentimes keeps you from making the big play, even though you saw it beforehand. You figured they were going to run this pattern, or in this situation, this circumstance, they were going to run this concept, and you might have been right, but just in case you were wrong, there's always a little hesitation. There's no hesitation with him. He's a fearless defensive back, and really trust his eyes and trust his preparation. That's something that stands out to me. So I'm with you. I don't think he's a physical freak. I don't know what he's going to run. But in terms of football intelligence and football IQ, yeah, I would put it up there with some of the best. And Blake Gideon's one of those guys. Blake Gideon, Coach Keenan would tell me that there is no Earl Thomas without Blake Gideon, because half the time Blake Gideon got him lined up. Earl was unsure about where to line up, and then Blake get him lined up. And once he gets lined up, it's all instincts from there. And then nobody had to do a damn thing. So I'm with you. I think I admire a lot of guys. I played with a lot of guys like that. I mean, Mark Brooks was actually a really smart football player. Had played quarterback in high school. So I admire those guys, because I didn't feel like I was a physical freak. I had a couple of elite traits, speed, and a couple other things, my press skills at the line of scrimmage. But there are some guys, man, their football intelligence through the roof. Nathan Vasher was a really smart football player. Underrated. Smart football player too.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was wondering who you would have at that category, because it's a different. What you're talking about is different.
Yep.
Than the other pieces that I was thinking about. CJ, you talk about that award, Starks and Downs. I wonder how much of is Colt or Colt. I want to talk about a guy that I think got snubbed a little, Gunnar Helm. Okay, They came out with a Mackey today. 3 really good tight ends got picked for it. So I'm not arguing that any of those 3 should be knocked out, but is Colston Loveland's numbers, are they appreciably better than Gunnar Helm's right now? Gunnar Helm's leading I don't know. Am I wrong? I mean, I think he may have got a little, nicked here, and he should have been nominated. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I agree. I mean, again, just kind of look at those big games for Gunnar Helm, right? He had the big touchdown early on against Michigan. He just comes off of a game where he had 2 more touchdowns against Kentucky. When he's impactful and when he's a guy that's a big part of this Texas game plan, look, the highlights, the numbers, they speak for themselves, right? You probably have a 30, 45-second clip of just him attempting hurdles this year and clearing guys. So not to mention his impact in the run game has moved Texas from having to go into a 6-man offensive line to that 11 straight up personnel package, or hey, move another tight end on the field and you can rely on Gunnar Helm to be that impactful blocker on the edge. So he's been tremendous. I agree. That's a a tough snub for Gunner, because I think that would have helped him tremendously in the draft stock. He's already helped himself this year when it comes to his draft stock. So encouraging on that note, but in the same time, certainly one that you would expect, or at least have thought he would have had a good shot at to at least been a finalist so far this year with the way that his season has gone.
Yeah, and he's actually, I want to say, going into last week, I go back and check it. He was your leading receiver in explosive receptions too, and they've come on a number of different ways, as CJ mentioned. Some of them are yak opportunities where he's getting yards after the catch and hurdling guys, and we've seen him go moss guys down the field and go up and high point the football multiple times. There's no doubt. I'm with you, man. Gunnar Helm, I feel like numbers wise, he should have been one of those finalists, but I understand because a lot of these, including the Butkus Award, you laid out there, I think, in a very eloquent fashion there, CJ, why Anthony Hill should have been a Butkus Award finalist, but he is he is the least experienced of that group, right? So sometimes some of those national awards are almost lifetime achievement awards or career achievement awards in a sense, and I feel like Gunnar Helm just kind of came out of nowhere. And Loveland's been around for a while. Some of these guys have been around for a while. And that does hurt you. Not all the time. Some of these guys, they just kind of flash too this season. But for Gunnar Helm, I definitely think that hurt him. That it was all JT Sanders last year and then Gunnar Helm this year. Even we admitted that we underrated Gunnar Helm. We didn't think Gunnar Helm was going to have this kind of impact. So I just think it took a while for the narrative to, solidify that, no, Gunnar Helm's one of the best tight ends in the country. We didn't start talking about that until maybe after the Oklahoma game. Probably should have been earlier than that.
Yeah, I agree. Tough to just jump onto the scene and become the best in the country, right? And
yes,
for an award like this, for most of the voters who don't watch every game, or at least as intently as they probably should, if they don't know the name, it's going to take them quite a long time to get acclimated to the name. And then it's tough to overcome what has already been established with previous guys.
All right, let's get a super chat in, and we'll get back to Kelvin Banks. I know he's another finalist for a national award, which could actually be the Longhorns bringing back-to-back Outland trophies back to the 40 acres. Let's hit Matt first. Matt Hanley. He says, guys, any worry Elko deploys the 3-high D looks 3-high look. Sark turns into Steven, to quote Rods, when that happens. As a native Texan, so glad the Hate Bowl is back. Yeah, the Hate Bowl. What is the nickname for the Texas A&M rivalry? Do we have a nickname for it?
Lonestar Showdown?
Is that what it is?
Come on. I'll tell you who we find out from is we talked to Billy Liucci and see what he says. You want to find that out?
Yeah.
All right. So I think that there is a chance they deploy a little bit of 3-high. I think there's a chance they do a bunch. Let's welcome in our man, Billy Liucci. You can maybe answer this. Billy, you there, buddy? See if Billy's there.
I think he's there. I see him.
Can you hear me, bud? Billy, you there?
I don't mind that background. Or do the one with the Aggies and Longhorns.
Hey, Billy, can you hear me,
you
bud?
Want to do that one?
I don't think he knows he's on.
Okay, I'll remove him real quick.
I don't think he knows he's on. But you know what? He can easily drop something and cancel. Yeah,
we'll get him on in a second.
Yeah,
we'll get him on in a second.
All right, let me.
I don't know the name.
Matt Hanley. Let me say this about the 3-high look. I thought Kentucky would use it, and I did not see it versus some says Lonestar Showdown. For the nickname. Yeah, I guess it's been a while since we've used it. We'll probably come up with something cooler than Lonestar Showdown, though. But I will say I thought Kentucky would use some of the 3-high. They did not that I saw. But A&M's had a little bit more time to prepare for Texas. I would use it if I was Elko. But like I said, to put something like that in when Arkansas used it, Arkansas already had that as part of their DNA. Hell, they even going back to 2021 when they played Sark, that was their a defensive identity was the 3-high. So it wasn't that much of a reach for them to implement it in one of their bye weeks. For A&M, maybe it's a little bit tougher, but I think it's worth it just because it works so well, countering some of Sark's creative tendencies and some of his conceptual signatures. So I would expect to see it, but Sark already has a formula for the 3-high. I don't know why the hell he didn't use it more versus Arkansas, but he does have a formula to basically to vanquish, if you will, or an antidote to the 3-high. He does.
I'm kind of on the opposite. I don't think you'll see it all that much from Texas A&M. Yes, it works for teams that don't have the guys up front. A&M has the guys up front, and I think that's where you see the Iowa States of the world, kind of the Oklahoma States of the world, the guys that don't have that true edge guy or the guys on the interior that can get after the quarterback. So that's where I'm like, okay, A&M can do that. That's their whole strength. Do you really want to take one of your big, strong interior edge rushers or defensive linemen off the field to add another safety that's 12 yards off the ball? I don't know. With the way that Texas is running the ball the last 5 quarters, even, there's some momentum there. They're playing with some mojo right now. Do you want to take another guy out of the box? So for me, it's all about the matchups. A&M lines up very well with that front 7. I think you let those guys keep going, right? I think you keep that front 7, the front 7, and then you just say, hey, safeties, we're going to try to get to the quarterback. Just know that you might be playing at 14 this week instead of 12. So I don't know. I don't know if you'll see it all too much compared to that of Arkansas, because outside of Landon Jackson, who was really going to get after the quarterback consistently, not as many guys as A&M in my eyes.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. Like I said, it could be just a tendency breaker, but you got to make sure you use it situationally. All right, thank you, Matt, for that. We appreciate it. Bobby will be back with us. It's 4:20 somewhere. Let's take this real quick. Happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for all of your hard work on Texas football, on Quinn. If he has limited mobility, can we afford to put him out there against the Aggie D-line? They will put him out there. That's just the way it is. He's gonna be out there, I do believe, to start the game. And the reports have been positive that it's a mild sprain. I think there will be contingency plans for Arch just in case it's re-injured or there's some lingering effects. But usually with ankle sprains, if it's a mild ankle sprain, kind of a week, which is kind of what he's going to get of treatment. Now, if it's a little bit more than a mild sprain and it's more severe than that, that's a different discussion. But if it is indeed mild, then I would expect he'd be okay, especially after they do a really good tape job. Really good tape jobs do wonders on guys. Like, I always hated taping my ankles. Mack Brown would almost insist everybody has their ankles taped. So I would actually ask the trainers to just do like a light wrap. It would just be tape around. It wouldn't be taped up, just tape around my ankles. So Mack wouldn't say anything to me if he came through, because he liked guys having their ankles wrapped. I didn't like to wrap mine, because once you start wrapping your ankles, always got to tape your ankles. So my experience with ankle injuries is that usually if it's mild, a week or so, if you get a really good tape job, especially at quarterback where you ain't got to change direction, you ain't doing a lot of change direction. Quinn just needs the kind of just functional mobility. When you get that, I think Quinn will be fine on the game. Now, if he gets hit and he gets hit the wrong way, dragged down the wrong way on that ankle or something, different discussion. That's why you got to have a contingency plan ready to go, because re-injury with an ankle like that, just a mild sprain, it can happen quickly. You can, obviously re-injure it very easily if it's already sprained, even with the tape job. So that's why the contingency plan is more important than worried about whether Quinn's going to be ready to go. I think Quinn will be ready to go. Does he hurt it and it's stiffen up throughout the game? That's the kind of thing you have to monitor if you're Sark and staff.
I agree. How much of that matters for a quarterback, right? I know it's a little bit different, but you also, as a cornerback, have to plant and change direction. Quarterbacks, you got to plant and drive or land, right? If you got a flat tire, that changes, the torque of your body, the direction of your throws. That means something, right? So it'll be interesting. You talk about tape jobs. Hey, you might need to revisit that Drew Brees Instagram photo from the Alabama game in 2022. Say, hey, if that was me back in the day, I'm getting shot up in the locker room and we're running it back out there. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but hey, that's how tough you got to be to play in a game like this, because mobility is going to be needed against this Texas A&M front. And if he can't do it, then he might just be a sitting duck, even with that Texas offensive line.
All right, let's welcome in Billy Liucci here, guys. Billy, how you doing today, buddy?
What's up, fellas?
Billy, how we doing?
We're on. Okay, these two can't get any. They're trying. I think they've had a rough week already. Where the content and all the different Zooms and podcasts, and it's like an ever-changing thing. But I'm glad to be on with y'all.
Hey, Billy, thanks for joining. I got to ask, we just had this conversation. I can't remember if there used to be a term for the Texas A&M game. They got Lone Star Showdown. That wasn't what it. I mean, was it ever anything other than just Texas A&M or A&M Texas for you guys? I can't remember
I felt like Bill Byrne and DeLoss came up with this. Remember when it was the Lone Star Showdown? That was like Bill Byrne's brainchild and baby because, there was that feud between probably around the time Rod was playing, like between Texas and Nebraska.
Yeah.
And then Bill Byrne came from Nebraska, with this disdain for Texas. He'd always call it the team down the road. And I felt like that was his kind of brainchild because he wanted to win the Directors' Cups. And it was needed at A&M at the time. I felt like they needed to elevate in all sports, and he did bring that. But I felt like they changed it to that sometime around then, like when Byrne got here. So it might have been that for like 10 years ago.
So my point is I don't really I don't really call it any, there's no historical name or it's all made up.
Texas A&M, whichever side you're on, everybody knows what it is. I don't feel like it needs a damn name.
All right. Hey, here's the deal. Let's get to it because we know we only got you for a little while. We appreciate you. What does this rivalry return to College Station mean to A&M? I think our fans know what it means to Texas. What does it mean to college football in College Station and Aggie fans?
I mean, I think it means everything. Look, here's the thing. It's just like the guy sitting next to you over there, Rod Babers was my first, he knows this, the first high school I went to covering this was Houston Lamar with him, Jerome Sapp, and Tehran.
Yeah.
And I went in there with the girl I was seeing at the time, and we walked into them, and they're my first face-to-face interviews. You guys and Kenny Hyder, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
We're all friends. We all love each other, and we all hate each other in terms of what we want A&M and Texas to lose. If you're an Aggie, you want to see the Horns lose. If you're a Longhorn. But we also, I think, need each other. The state needs this game. The state needs, every conversation I've had for God knows how long, and especially this week, and it's every conversation at Thanksgiving around the state. But here's what A&M, when they went in the SEC, it was a massive step up, I think, for they've had some decent success, nothing special other than that, that first year. They've had a couple top 5 finishes that first year, produced the Heisman, but visibility-wise and in terms of just week in, week out and being in the discussion, they've taken a big step forward by joining the SEC. It's been great for A&M. It's going to be great for Texas. It's obviously been great so far. But the one thing Texas A&M has not had, and to me it's been a glaring omission now that I see what's happening here in the last few weeks, they have not had anything closely resembling a rival. And so not only do they now have a rival, I think this A&M Texas rivalry is the best in the SEC because it's the one that we care about, a Friday night women's soccer game and baseball in the spring and basketball. Like the other schools, I don't feel like have it to this level. So not only do A&M gain a rival, but they jumped up to one of the more heated rivalries in the sport.
Billy, I was going to ask you something along the lines of that. Thanks for joining us, of course. But I mean, they SEC kind of scheduled, and Texas A&M and Arkansas got together and they said, "Hey, let's play in Dallas," right? And then the SEC said, "You know what? LSU, Texas A&M, we're going to play Thanksgiving week and see how that goes." And maybe there was some animosity, some hatred there, right? You play every year; these games mean something, especially on a neutral site in Dallas. But how did those games ever stack up, right? In comparison to that of Texas or to this rivalry, did it ever truly feel like it was a rivalry that meant something to you?
No, not outside of it's an SEC game, right?
Yeah, it's the result. Yeah.
Not outside of that. And the Arkansas series has been it's 12-1 in favor of A&M since they joined the league. And the LSU series, I think the home teams won the last 8, or no, they're 13 years in. So the home teams won. A&M is 4-4. They've won the last 4 against LSU at Kyle Field, but LSU started out 6-0 out of the chute. So it didn't quite feel like that for a long time of them joining the league, as much as A&M wanted to beat them. But there's a little more disdain for LSU from I do feel like Aggies really want to beat LSU and vice versa. They hate losing to A&M. And then Arkansas really wants to beat A&M, but it's just because they don't.
Mhm.
Man, there's nothing close to it. I mean, it's just not. And you guys will see, you're already seeing, but it's going to be so fun for the Longhorns year in, year out being in that Georgia game.
Yeah.
I feel like this year you're going to play 3 of them like that. OU, Georgia, and A&M, right? There's going to be years where you play 6 of them. So like next year it's going to be Ohio State, Florida should be really good, going to the Swamp, and then, you're getting A&M, in Austin. Like there's some years when you're going to look up and it's going to be 5 or 6 of those type games. And that's what's so cool about the conference, but it's still not as cool as lining up, against friends, against family, against guys you played against all growing up in high school. To log into this app where one side's going to dish out a whole lot and the other side's just going to have to take it. CJ, you and I joke about that the other day. There's nothing like that. There's nothing like it. So I think, you guys have had OU, but you don't have the week in and week out craziness. You're seeing it right now. You guys are right there in the middle of it. And it's like, it's really different when you're in this league. It really is. But what we did not have was a rival.
Yep.
I got to say this, Billy, just from a Texas standpoint, extremely excited about the rivalry returning. Period. Full stop. And you do realize what you were missing once it's gone. And I think both sides did. Some of them liked it when their team was doing well. And then when their team wasn't doing well, they didn't like it. They wanted the chance to get back at the other team. And I think both groups have experienced that in the last 10 years or so. And I think that's part of it. I said this earlier this week. I think this will be the most watched college football game, regular season, in the state of Texas ever. So if you think about it that way, a rekindling of a rivalry, and I'm talking about just sheer number of households watching a college football game.
The irony of A&M not holding up their end of the bargain this weekend at Jordan-Hare, but Oklahoma bailing both of, we all want this game to have and you guys are in a little different position now because of and I think you were always getting in if you went 10-2 and lost to A&M.
Yep.
But because of what happened last weekend, now everybody knows it's a complete shoe-in, win or lose this week. Obviously, Sark and you guys and everyone listening wants to go to Atlanta. You want a rematch with Georgia. You want to win the SEC in your first year. There's a ton at stake for both teams. But it's literally because of OU doing what I never thought I would see happen and beating Bama that this game has those stakes. And you're right, Bobby. It's going to be the most watched. And think about this. First year of renewing the rivalry, and there's no one with 1 ounce of football IQ or awareness that would say this isn't an exponentially bigger game than the Iron Bowl and then Ohio State, Michigan. Those don't even compare to this week.
The other two don't. The other two has at least one team that's not even. Yeah, that's a good point, Billy. Good point.
Pretty wild, and what a better. I think it's awesome. And look, you guys are on a 4-year buildup with Sark that it's literally done this. And A&M, it's year 1 under Elko, and it's like, man, imagine the momentum swing, not swing, just because I think Texas. We're in a world now where they're both in the SEC. Both these teams can thrive because they both recruit nationally now. Bobby, you and I go so far back, when you get Rod Babers and Jerome Sapp or the Texas City Four or Johnny Manziel comes into College Station and the momentum swings, it was like everybody was just recruiting Texas and there wasn't sometimes enough to go around. It felt like both teams are national now and especially recruiting in this league. So both can thrive, but for A&M, the momentum swing, if they can win that game, play for an SEC championship, win or lose, what it would do, I think, for Elko in season 1 to knock off 3 top 10 teams at home. And more important than those other 2 would be, to close it out, beating Texas. I mean, there's not a better way you could have drawn up season 1. Obviously, that's a pretty damn big hurdle. I don't care what Quinn's ankle is like. I think that's a massive hurdle to clear.
Hey, Billy, you brought up Mike Elko, and he's done a good job in his first year. Sark's first year, there was some struggles, right? 5-7. And from then on, he's championed his culture as being the secret sauce as to how he turned Texas around so quickly. What is the secret sauce there for Mike Elko? What is his culture? What is it all about, in your opinion, now that you've had a chance to experience it and witness it?
I think it's a lot the same thing, right? I think it's about just Elko has a great way of he's a disciplinarian, but he's also got that. He's not their best friend, but he is their friend. He's their coach, but he can put his arm around the guys. He can joke with them. But when the time is, this is a very disciplined program internally, and I'm talking about things like class, weight room, not late for meetings, repercussions for when you do slip, and they are. This is a problem that was going on at A&M under our last 2 coaches, was not following through on the punishment, and to me that is a culture killer. As soon as you start losing, you can get away with that as long as you're winning and everybody's going out on Saturday night after the games and celebrating. As soon as you start losing, that catches up to you, and there's none of that going on with Elko. And I think just he's a 2024 coach, and by that I mean he knows how to deal with guys that age. He's got his son's in college. He's a college baseball player. He understands the college football player of 2024 today, like what motivates them, what's the best way to discipline them, how you can, get them to work as a team in that culture. But also, he gets the portal. He gets the importance of staying way out in front of that, never being caught off guard, never being behind. He understands the day-to-day roster management, the importance of that. This dude is on the road a lot during the offseason. I know you guys have paid very close attention to that. I feel like Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, to me, are 1, 2, 3 in whatever order in the NIL game right now. And A&M, it was a myth, a big myth, starting with that $30 million myth of where they were NIL-wise. Since Elko's gotten here, he's taken that to a whole nother level, and now they're right there, I think, in that next group and moving up. And a lot of it is his own personal hard work because he understands the importance of it. If he gets a call to go meet someone in Midland, Amarillo, Dallas, Fort Worth, East Texas, Austin during his offseason, he is there. And it's not just going there to show up. He's working those relationships because he understands that, Bobby, we used to say recruiting is the lifeblood. It's now NIL. I mean, no better proof of that than what happened with Bryce Underwood and Michigan and LSU last week.
TexAgs going to offer Bryce Underwood $13 million?
Steve, the McKinney brother, we're on a group text, and Steve and I and Seth, we do a podcast every Friday. And about 5 minutes before this started, Steve said, Michigan's got Dave Portnoy. We've got Walmart Dave Portnoy. So no, I'm not. I don't know what quarterback I could afford. It's not Bryce Underwood.
Hey, I got to ask you because I don't want to go backwards because I do think this game is so important. When did you know it was over for Jimbo Fisher? I just got to ask because I did not ask you this when we were talking at SEC Media Day, and I wanted to ask you. When did you really when did you know it should be over? Not necessarily when you knew it was over, but when did you
my first doubts, like where I was like, damn, because people forget, and I get killed by the Longhorns, and I love, you guys know, I love sparring with them, and I'm gonna win some, lose some, and it's understood. But people forget that Jimbo in year 1 went 8-4. He beat a top 10 LSU. He was a play away from beating Clemson. They rolled through a bowl game. And in year 3, year 2, they played, I think, 4 number 1 teams in the same year. And that was 4 of their 5 losses. Year 3, they was the COVID year, but that was a good football team that was set to win a lot of games. They had a senior quarterback, all senior O-line. They had that was a real team, and then they finished top 5. And then that next season, Bobby, they beat, because there was a lot under the surface, kind of like what me and Rod were just talking about with the culture, where you're like, they got to get there quick because it's not. They beat Bama after losing a couple early. Then a number like Bo Nix and number 11 Auburn came in here and they beat them. And they were set to go Orange Bowl win, New Year's 6 again. They were favored against Ole Miss. They were favored heavily against LSU. That was Ed O's last game. And they lost both of those games that they had no business losing to go 8-4. And that was, to me, like a real red flag. Just the way, there's a lot we could go on forever. I could tell you why, but just the way they lost those games and like pulling Devon Achane out and not giving him fourth quarter carries when he was just carving both those teams. That was my kind of go, man, these are the kind of losses that'll get you. Yeah. But then the next year, I think the easy answer is, when they went and lost to, Appalachian State. And look, their next 2 weeks they beat Miami and they beat Arkansas. But Bobby, that was the big one where you go, man. And he lasted a whole nother year, but you're like, I just don't know, because you're in year 5 and you lost to App State at home. That was the one.
Yeah, that's like the Texas basketball coach losing into Abilene Christian in the NCAA tournament. You just you don't survive that.
That's true.
I get it, man. I get it. Well, thanks for that one, Billy. Anything we were talking about? What we were going to ask you prior to coming on? Any way you see this game, strengths for A&M versus Texas and vice versa?
My view of this game has changed so much the last couple of weeks, and I think Texas is what I've thought they are. Like, this is not an insult at all. I think Texas can win a national championship. I have all year. I also think that they are not the 2005 Longhorns. I don't think they are these great Bama teams that I've seen A&M play throughout the SEC. I don't think they're the great OU teams I saw A&M play under Bob Stoops and I don't think they're like what the Georgia teams of recent vintage of Kurt, not this year so much, but so in other words, they are beatable, but they're also good enough to win a national title. Does that make sense? Like, I see some areas of a little bit of like vulnerability there. So Texas is what I think they are. They're really damn good. What A&M is, I'm on the fence on now after these last, because I knew what they were on offense. Losing Le'Veon Moss is a killer. Amari Daniels is tough dude. He's putting up. He's producing. But they lost a guy that I think is, I told some Aggies the other day, imagine A&M playing Auburn without Jarquez Hunter, because Le'Veon Moss was one of the 2-3 best backs in the SEC. Yeah. And when he got hurt, it's pretty devastating. He brought a level of toughness, explosiveness in the run game. That fourth quarter, you're going to feel him. That tight. He's really that good. They lost an NFL running back. But Rod Reed, Rod's his dad. Marcel Reed is, here's the best way I could describe him. I think he's going to be really good, and he might be really good Saturday night. But you're watching a quarterback that was, in a perfect world, Connor Wigman was going to be the guy all year and go on to the NFL, which is what, not me, but what every NFL personnel and scout and everyone I talked to thought was going to happen. And then next year was going to be Marcel. Kind of like with Ewers and Arch, like totally different sets, but the same concept, the same kind of, pass the torch pattern was likely to happen here. It didn't work out that way. You're watching a quarterback learn as he goes in the Southeastern Conference. And this will be the best defense that he's faced. All those things I knew. what I didn't expect was to have as many questions as I have on the defensive side of the ball now, because neither of those two offenses are explosive, South Carolina and Auburn, but they have some great players. Cam Coleman, Jarquez Hunter, Sellers is so hard to tackle. Rocket Sanders, like they have some great players, but they're not explosive offenses. And man, A&M's just given up so many big plays. And the matchup I liked, and want to see if I still like it, was that Aggie D-line against the Texas O-line. I don't think they would have like I think the interior was an advantage A&M in that one. And could they get Ewers? Could they give him problems? Could they get to him? Could they make him indecisive? Could it allow Elko to rush 4 and cover with 8, and just run some games with Quinn and just kind of break up momentum? They haven't been getting to the quarterback, this front 4, and they've been giving up rushing yards. And these are two things that have really just popped up, because a few weeks ago, and I know LSU's had their trouble, I'm watching the Aggies and that D-line, kick the you-know-what out of Will Campbell and the other high-round draft pick at tackle for LSU, work that O-line over, give up 20 rushing yards, and Nussmeier's a good quarterback, and they harassed him into 3 second-half turnovers.
Yeah.
And they got after them, and I was like, okay, this group's turning the corner, and they'll give anybody a problem. Well, they haven't looked anything like that the last couple of weeks. So I don't know. Here's what I do know. When you're a good, and Rod, you can probably attest to this. When you're a good team, but not special, not great, you're a lot better at home than you are on the road.
Yep.
Like Texas should come in here and play well. Like I wouldn't expect them in a rivalry game. I know this environment. I've been talking a lot about they're not playing night games on the road. Texas should come in and play well. I'd be so shocked if they don't. But what they're going to get, in my opinion, is an A&M team that's a lot better than it's going to look way more like we saw in the second half of LSU versus what we saw the last couple weeks on the road. That's what a team that's trying to. You mentioned the Sark, the 5-7 in that first year.
Yep.
In the first year of a head coach, Elko's probably banging his head on the wall, like, what do I have to do to get, like, he's trying to figure out his team, and I think they're going to be a lot better at home. So Texas will get, I think, the best version of A&M, which I think is a pretty damn good team, and it's a team that, can give anybody a problem in 2024, because even though I think Texas is up there at the very top, it's not the same top that it normally is.
It's interesting. You mentioned a new coach is looking for a galvanizing win for his fan base. And I thought personally that LSU would be that. You probably thought that too. And then South Carolina happened. And then Auburn happened last week. And all of a sudden, wait a minute, maybe that win didn't mean as much. So let's reconvene and really focus in on what this Texas game means. I completely agree with you. Hey, we've heard Reuben Owens may or may not be back for this game. You mentioned Le'Veon Moss. What was the original injury to Owens? And I guess he could theoretically redshirt, although I didn't think he would ever actually be a redshirt candidate, given how good a football player he is. What was his original injury, and what is the latest prognosis? Don't give us any inside baseball. Just tell us.
I'll tell you just honestly, so it was a foot injury or a lower leg, ankle, foot, like right there in camp, like their second scrimmage, and he was done at the time, for the season. He had surgery, and I remember seeing him at their next scrimmage. He was up in a suite, on his cart, and he said something about he might be back. He's going to try, and I kind of, it would be nice, but it's the same injury Jabri Barber. I think it's the same injury he had in spring, and then he was back. He was on the field against McNeese in game 2, and played against Florida the next week. Like I would call significant amount. I think Ruben returned to practice on whatever level, like prior to Auburn, and there's a chance. I think there's a chance you could see him get some carries, but I think more as far as impact goes, I think it would be we'd have a much more interesting conversation if A&M were to win that game and play Georgia a week from now, especially like if the Aggies went to the playoff. I think you'd see him be, full go. I just think you're a little bit off from that. But what Elko has done with guys, and I've seen it, and he did it this week with another key guy. You saw Chase Besantis play in a few series. He didn't start. He didn't get, but he played in a few series. That's a big one, guys, for A&M. Like Ruben Owens, look, if they put him in and he gets a 50-yard touchdown run, obviously he's having, but I don't think the plan is for him to get a whole bunch of work. You just might see him. Chase Besantis is a big deal because they didn't just lose Ruben. Chase is going to be a high round NFL draft pick at left guard. He started at right tackle as a true freshman, had some real ups and downs. He's not a tackle. He's a long time like NFL guard. He's really, really good. And they've been without him. He got hurt. So he missed LSU, he missed South Carolina, and played a few series against Auburn. The combination of losing him and Moss, I think, has really hurt. Trey Zune is going to be a good NFL offensive lineman. And when you put him and Besantis beside each other on that left side, they're really good. And look, I've talked to my scouting buddies. They come through Austin. They come up to College Station, and they've been telling me, like, Alfred Collins is now, like, he's playing like a first-round pick. And so you better be, as stout as you can be up front, to deal with him. And I think getting Besantis back will be a big deal for this offense.
It will be. Billy, you mentioned Ruben Owens. This one last question from me, but a fun recruitment for those that followed it, right? One time committed to Texas, decommitted, kind of looked around, ends up at Texas A&M, but kind of during that Cold War era where Texas and Texas A&M didn't play, certainly a lot of fun battles. You had the Malik Jeffersons, the Kyler Murrays, even recently, Bryce Anderson's, Terry Buskey's, all sorts. Was there one back when the two teams?
I'd take him right now.
God. I don't think Sark wants to give him up, Billy. I don't think Sark wants to give him up.
No, hey, by the way, what a snub. That's just not right for that kid to not be a Butkus finalist.
There you go.
Yeah, that was a tough one to stomach down in Austin. But I wanted to ask you, was there a recruitment that maybe went the direction of A&M where you were thinking, okay, this was one of my favorites to follow or favorites to cover versus, that was one that I wasn't expecting to leave off to Austin?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the big losses to Texas because it was weird because like A&M was up, Texas was down, then it flipped. So you weren't expecting to win that many battles against Texas. So I think one of the wins that I was, one of the most amped about was Martellus Bennett. And he didn't lead them to like championships or anything, but he was a really good tight end at A&M and then on to the pro. He was one of those 5 stars that certainly panned out.
That was huge.
And I'll tell you one I didn't, one that I didn't really care much about, like just as far as like just saying, I like the kid. He's impressive to talk to, but whatever was the A&M Texas battle that Fran was involved in for Colt McCoy. Like I was, he seems so little and he's playing that. And I mean, that was one, like I said, like it didn't, there were guys they lost to Texas that bothered me a lot more than Colt. And then you saw what he became and turned into. I think I've got a picture of him from the A&M football camp, wearing like a Jim Ned shirt, and he looks like he's 12 years old, right? And I remember that him being there. I'm trying to think of one.
I got to say this, Billy. I got to tell you this. So Stephen McGee was in that same class.
Yep.
And they both were at the 7-on-7 state tournament in College Station. and they literally were standing next to one another.
Mhm.
Okay. And Stephen McGee was built pretty well for a high school senior.
Yeah.
And always has been well put together, right?
Yeah.
And Colt McCoy had to be 160 dripping wet.
Yeah.
He was Rod Baber size. He may have been
Good
a
size,
slightly
Rod.
bit taller than Rod, but he was a string bean. And I remember thinking to myself, did Texas take the right guy?
Yeah.
Because if you just looked at him, and you know this, and I've got nothing. I think Stephen McGee is fine quarterback.
Oh, he was sitting right here yesterday. We do our duo tweet. Yeah.
You would look at him, right, and say, "What, there's no way." But those were good times. I remember Martellus Bennett too.
Marty B. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's, the big losses for A&M that I remember that just set the fans ablaze were like Corey Nelson to OU right before signing day and Eric Winston to Miami, who was, an Aggie legacy.
Adrian Peterson,
that ripped the hearts out of Texas fans, but there is a real backstory there about, he was sneaking into A&M a lot there down the stretch. And then they fired RC and Ken Rucker. You guys know Ruck. Don't sleep on Ruck to pull something off.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I'm trying to think though. I mean, look, Rod Babers. Not that he was ever going to A&M, but I met him in SAP, and I'm like, oh, that would be a nice coup.
Hey, I was close, Billy. I was close, man. I was my last. It was down to Texas A&M, man. I love me some RC.
And Nate, RC. And Quan always talks about that too. Like he loved RC. RC, and who else was it? Nathan Vasher. That was he may have been committed to A&M for a brief minute too. That was one. Oh, I got the biggest one was Leonard Davis. Okay, let's be real. He was committed to A&M. He's the first early commitment that I remember. I watched Leonard Davis run like a 4.9 at an A&M camp at like 355, 360. He was wearing a wave cap, and it was him and Seth McKinney, and I always call Seth Baby Huey. And it was Baby Huey, and Leonard looked like he was 37 years old. And they were like, they won the fastest man, like for the big men, and they raced each other, and Leonard beat him. I'll tell you one that I wanted A&M to land, and now I'm just going to throw shade at him and say I'm glad we didn't, for as much trash as he still talks to this day, is Kenny Hyder. Longhorn turned horn frog, and he pretends he can root for both teams now. Come on now.
That's right. Kenny's in Vegas now too, so he's got cash in Vegas.
I've met up with him in Vegas a couple times, and I love him. But he texts me before every A&M game, asking me if I think they're going to cover. I'm like, man, I don't know. I'm the last person to ask.
That sounds like Kenny.
It's not because I'm positive. I'm actually negative. If you catch me right before the game, I'm like, it's not what people think. I'm like, dude, I'm not telling you. But he still does it to this day.
No, sounds like Kenny. Kenny was my roommate my freshman year in Jester. Kenny was my roommate before I roomed with Sills. That was my roommate.
I had no idea. I did not know that.
Billy, thank you so much for joining us. You spend a lot of time. You're very gracious with us. We appreciate it. Before I let you go, this is something that is very meaningful. 25th anniversary of the Bonfire tragedy. Anything, and I know I'm going to say this and mean it, anything that Texas fans can do to help honor that on Saturday, anything that y'all have in particularly planned there at A&M that Texas fans can be part of, anything like that you're aware of right now?
Unfortunately, I'm going to feel terrible if there is, because I don't know the answer to that, but I will tell you what, I'll find out and tweet it, and I'll tag you guys if there is.
Yeah.
I think just more than anything, remember it. And we all remember that day. And I remember literally 100 yards from here, we were living in a house. And I remember Randy McCown and Bumgardner and Toya Jones and those guys pulling up in a truck. It was before internet, well, not before internet, but before cell phone and you wake up to this news and it's like, wait, what? And, it was such confusion. And I remember them pulling up in our driveway, a truck full of guys saying, let's go. And then we all hopped in, we all went, and literally, groups of 20, 25, however many people it took. And I'm talking about football players picking up those logs and helping, along with the other students, helping people move those. And never forget the way, ironically enough, as the day that Mack Brown gets fired, I'll never forget his response and the dignity and compassion and all that he handled that with. And still, we had RC and Mac on here recently to talk about it. Like, that is a day that I think forever has affected Mack Brown, obviously affected everybody here. And just that game day was special. I actually, a little off topic, but on topic, I went out to Atlanta for maybe SEC Media Days, Bobby, whatever it was. I was in Atlanta and went to dinner with Jay Brooks. Rod, I know you know Jay. And he's a cop there in Atlanta. And we went to dinner. I'm hanging out with his buddies. And Jay's so low-key that none of his friends, he went to the bathroom. I go, was he any good? His other cop, but is he any good? I go, Jay blocked like 12 kicks in his career. Like, this dude. And I said, you've never seen this play? And I show them that play. And they all knew. They're just Atlanta guys with no ties to A&M. They all knew about the Bonfire falling in the Bonfire game. And they had no idea that Jay, made that play to end that game. So that whole week, that whole day was something memorable, I think, for everybody, right?
Yep, it was.
Goodness. All right, dude. Well, hey, we appreciate you. Do pass that on. I'll make sure folks here know as well, Rod and CJ and I will. All right, buddy. You be good, Billy. Thanks so much for spending some time with this quality time, dude. Really.
I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. It's been 13 years, way too long.
Hey, you can say gig him. That's the only time I'm allowed. I'm going to say hook him.
Thanks, Billy.
Thanks, Billy. See you Saturday.
Take care of yourself, buddy.
Good stuff there from Billy. Let me thank one of our sponsors before we continue here, and we'll obviously get back to some of the conversation. And we got college football playoff rankings to get to here, gentlemen. But let me thank our fans at DG Construction. Texas fans in the Austin and San Antonio area, are you dreaming of transforming your outdoor spaces? Well, look no further than DG Construction, folks. San Antonio's premier hardscape and exterior living space contractor, celebrating 10 amazing years of delivering top-notch craftsmanship. The guys over at DG Construction are experts at creating stunning driveways, patios. You see the pictures right there. Patios, walkways, and beautiful lawn improvements in either concrete or vivid pavers that match and enhance the curb appeal of your home's exterior. Whether you're in San Antonio, Austin, Kerrville, or anywhere in the Hill Country, their dedicated team brings your residential and commercial visions to life. From luxurious artificial turf to sturdy house slabs and even foundation repairs, DG Construction has got you covered. They're just a call away. Reach out to Mark Valdez, their dedicated design consultant and a longtime subscriber of On Texas Football. That's right, folks. He is family. So hit Mark up for a free consultation at 210-400-5643. That's 210-400-5643. Don't wait, folks. Do it today. And you have our friends over at DG Construction come out, give them a call, or visit them online at dgsatx.com. That's dgsatx.com. Hook them from the folks at DG Construction, where outdoor dreams meet exceptional design. Thank you very much to DG Construction. We appreciate them. And thanks to Billy Liucci. That was a really cool interview. And I still remember Mack in 99 after that Bonfire incident. I mean, Mack was, guys, he was distraught. Mack was like that when we had the Colt Pittman tragedy, that Bonfire tragedy. I mean, I almost felt like Mack wanted us to lose, but he did not feel bad about losing that game. Because I think he kind of understood what it meant to the Aggies. And that was one of the few times where Mack was not, usually after losses, like Mack is, he's in a bad mood and inconsolable. He's talking about how, it's hard for him to find joy after losses. That was actually a loss where I don't think it was hard for him to find joy afterwards, because he knew what it meant to that program. And he says to this day, the one thing, if you could change anything about his tenure at Texas, He said he would change that tragedy. He said he would go back and, obviously change that if you can change one thing. So Mack was very connected to that tragedy. Shout out to Mack, by the way. We ain't talked about it. Mack got.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Rod.
Yeah.
This is a good opening, a good time to ask you a simple question. Your former head coach let go today at Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Second time he's been asked to step away. What are your thoughts about Mack and what he meant to Texas, what he meant to you, et cetera?
Hall of Fame coach, but a Hall of Fame human being too. Nobody's perfect, obviously. Mack can be a little stubborn. I think he was toward the end of his tenure there and at Texas. But there's no doubt Mack was always about his guys. He still has great relationships with that's so many of his players that reach out to him and personally. Me and Mack had our issues, right? Because Mack called me out about some things I said in the media about his team, but he called me out because I was talking about his team and his guys. And he wanted to clarify that, and basically me and Mack hugged it out, and we're still close to this day. And Mack said, "Listen, Rod, if somebody was talking about you, and they did, I'd call them in my office too." So Mack, to me, man, I look at him as a father figure. He made my mom a promise when he sat down on her couch and drank her sweet tea when I was narrowing down my choices between Texas and Texas A&M. And Mack told my mom, he said, "I guarantee your son will graduate." That's why Mama was such a huge Mack Brown fan. First time I went back to school after the NFL, I'm down. All right, I'm feeling down because my NFL career did not work out like I thought. And so I visited the University of Texas. I see, all the old counselors, see Brian Davis, and see Cleve, Brian, and Gene, I see everybody. And I see Mack, and then Mack says, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm just hanging out, visiting." He's like, "Are you done playing?" And I was like, "I don't know. I mean, I haven't got a call. If I get a call, then I will go play." He's like, "Well, if they ain't calling you, get back in school. I promise your mama I'd get you that degree. Let's get that going." So even like we talking about, only 10 years later after Mack made my mom that promise, first thing he said when he saw him was like, "I made your mama a promise about that degree. Let's get that done." That's the kind of guy Mack is. All of same human being. So I love Mack to this day. I get it. He's a parade or a pine box kind of guy. But that's what made him a Hall of Fame coach. That kind of stubborn streak about him. But there's no doubt, guy could have ran for office in Texas, hell, and probably won. He's got that kind of personality. He really does.
No doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt.
So I'll reach out to him. I hadn't some time, but I'll reach out and send a text or something and give Mack the best. Hopefully, listen, Mack, I know you're feeling down. And when you left Texas, the wounds were too fresh, the hurt was still fresh, so you couldn't come back and be honored here in Texas. Then I will say Texas is in a really good place right now, Mack, and you might not be in a good place just because you obviously the way things ended at North Carolina, not ideal. Now it's time. Come on back to Texas, man. Come on back. Matter of fact, we'll put you on the sideline of the Texas A&M game. You can be part of that nightmare row we're going to create for the Aggies. All the players and icons that were able to beat the Aggies and be able to dominate the Aggies over the years. We're going to put them out there. Ricky, we'll put Colt and Case out there. We'll put, Justin Tucker be out there. Mack Brown showing up on the sideline, just waving.
James Brown needs to be out there. James Brown.
Exactly. Yes. So we should bring all of them back. I will say this, though. I am serious, though, in some regard, though. Mack, come on back to Texas. We'll show you some love. Like, we ready to show love now because the program's in a really good place. And so all that stuff that Mack did toward the end of his tenure that got Texas and back kind of crossed, nobody will care about that. All we think about now is the legacy that Mack left, the double-digit win seasons, the national championship, and the legacy that it left. So come on back. It's time to start building that statue anyway. He might get one now. It's good. Come on.
I like it.
Yep. The legend, the ghost of Thanksgiving's past. That's what we can call it.
Yeah.
Right all of those.
That I do. I like that one. All right, let's take another one of our sponsors. I know we're getting close to the end of the live stream, so I want to get our sponsors in here. Our friends over at Hardgrove Roofing, ladies and gentlemen. We're very grateful to Hardgrove Roofing for their relationship and their support. They've been great, and I would recommend them, folks, not only because of a personal relationship with the folks over at Hardgrove Roofing. My man, lifetime Longhorn Stevie Lee, he goes way, way, way back because they actually started in Shreveport, Louisiana. Matter of fact, they still got offices in Louisiana and in Arkansas and in the great state of Texas, including Austin, Texas. And they will take care of all of your roofing needs. This is how you know that they are top-notch individuals. So they offer a free roof inspection. That's right, free 99. So if you need somebody to come look at your roof, or you have issues going on with your roof, give my friends over at Hardgrove Roofing a call, 512-645-3202. They'll come out and check out your roof for absolutely free 99, best price you're going to get. Or you can reach out to them online at hardgroveroofing.com. That's hardgroveroofing.com. We really appreciate them for being a sponsor of our Tuesday night live stream. All right, I know we got some questions and some super chats. Let's get to the super chats really quickly, and then we'll get to the college football playoff before we got to get out here. A couple of super chats here. I guess Catch the Wave X. Sorry, I got this one late. Catch the Wave X. I guess you wanted us to ask Billy this question. We apologize. Says specifically in a stream earlier this week, he said the coach coming in here, everyone's kissing his arse. Please explain his perspective. Billy said everybody is kissing Sark's arse. Explain. I guess the Longhorns are good in everybody's talking about how I like this. I bet one of the things Billy looks at too is, and I talk about this in football theory a lot, when coaches start to steal each other's schemes and they spread across football at the NFL and college level. There's a lot of that happening right now, cross-pollination, and some of Sark's schemes are like literally being replicated in the NFL. So that's what people are talking about Sark a lot there. His team's really good, so teams are talking about Texas. So maybe it's just, a little, I don't know, annoyed, but how good everybody's talking about how Texas's head coach is, and maybe he wants us to show Elko some love. I actually know we'll have to ask Billy that when he comes on again.
Let him spout. Look, I love Billy. And so people asked me about that before. Really knows A&M as well as you can know it, right? Mm-hmm. So he knows the A&M perspective as well as you can know it. And I will say this, me explaining the A&M perspective can't really happen. I can't help you on that.
That's true.
I don't get it.
That's true.
But,
that's well put. Yeah.
I mean, if you listen to that interview with Billy Liucci there, and you're talking to someone that knows A&M as well as you can possibly know it. So, I don't really care what he says about Texas. I mean, I know that is one thing or the other, but it's clear. I want to say this. I think there's a healthy amount of respect in this rivalry and a healthy amount of hate, right?
I like that.
And Billy's trying to show a healthy amount of respect, while you know that underneath there's probably a healthy amount of hate too. So that's just the way it is. I don't go into this media guy versus media guy thing.
Yeah, and keep in mind he's also talking to his constituents. Aggies want to hear that. That's the way they want to hear him refer to Longhorns and kissing that coach's arse, whatever. I get that too. All right, Justin here says, who NFL wise would y'all compare Quinn to? I'm on the lines of Jake Plummer or Kirk Cousins. Jake Plummer reference. Well done. Old school there. Jake Plummer. Yeah. I don't know if I agree with the Jake Plummer thing, but I like the old school reference. CJ, I'll throw it to you because I'm thinking it's sort of a mixture here. There's some Jared Goff in there, I feel like a little bit, with some of the off angles. What are your thoughts about who he compares to in the pros?
Yeah, it's interesting. We haven't really been able to pinpoint just one for Quinn. He's got bits and pieces of a couple guys, right? I think Jared Goff is an easy one, a guy that has a lot of good touch on his football, a guy that's not as mobile. I like some of the off-platform throws. When Quinn starts moving around, he kind of looks like Phillip Rivers, the way that he can kind of just sling it from any angle, maybe it's just the way that Phillip Rivers was able to just throw with this funky motion, so maybe that was part of it. Yeah. But there's just little bits and pieces of it. And there are a lot of names being thrown out right now that I don't know if like Drew Lock, he's got a monster arm, sure, but Drew Lock, I mean, that was a gamer, a guy that will hit you near the goal line. Zach Wilson, again, I think Quinn's smarter with the football than Zach Wilson ever was. So it's interesting. It's just bits and pieces of different guys that you could kind of piece together and say, all right, he's kind of resembles him, kind of got some instincts like him, but I don't think there's just one guy that stands out and says, yeah, that's a spitting image of what we're seeing right now with Quinn Ewers.
Getting a couple of Jeff Georges from back in the day. Man, do we think
I'm gonna have to?
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to Google Jeff George. I'm gonna be honest.
Jeff George had an absolute. He had a cannon.
First, I thought it was Jeff Garcia, the old Niners quarterback.
Jeff Hostetler. Hey, that's the name you don't mention in Sam's house.
Bobby Petronic was absolutely right.
Michael
Pull
Vick.
that comment up, Matthew.
I love that. Bet CJ doesn't know who Georgia is. And boom, he was right. He's like, I would say CJ he will do great rabbit hole research, and he will, by tomorrow morning, I guarantee you, he would have watched all the YouTube stuff out there on Jeff George and give you
I'll come to a conclusion on Jeff George and Quinn real quick.
Yeah. All right, before we get to the college football playoff rankings here and get close to the end of our live stream, I got to thank another one of our sponsors, folks. Let's thank our friends over at our friend, The Carrot Concierge. We want to appreciate, and by the way, the holiday season is coming up, guys. You do not want to procrastinate. I know a lot of you out there, you like to procrastinate, like to take your time when it comes to the gift giving season. Don't do that. Right now, you need to reach over to our friend, The Carrot Concierge, because she does a great job. And right now, The Carrot Concierge actually can hook you up as well. And we're really grateful to her for being a part of the On Texas football family and for sponsoring our Tuesday night live stream. So, folks, right now, great time with, all the holidays approaching, the gift giving season approaching. It's a perfect time for you to reach out to our friend Jody over at thecarrotconcierge.com. Jody Reynolds is a personal jeweler, and she is the Carrot Concierge. You can see some of her beautiful creations. Matter of fact, you can scan that QR code right there on your screen. You can get even more of her designs. You can also visit her on Instagram or her website, thecarrotconcierge.com. Jody is an Austin resident and has an office right there in Westlake, and she does a fantastic job, folks. And here's the best thing about the Carrot Concierge, because she doesn't have the overhead of a storefront. She often gets higher quality inventory at the lowest possible prices, as much as 30% less than what you see at a jewelry store. She's got tennis bracelets, rings, necklaces, and more, all beautiful jewelry, all personalized for you and yours. Just check out thecarrotconcierge.com. Reach out today to the Carrot Concierge, folks, and you will not regret it. She does a great job, and I'd recommend, as a matter of fact, I probably should reach out before Christmas hits and the gift-giving season to thecarrotconcierge.com. All right, thank you very much, and we appreciate her for sponsoring our Tuesday live stream. All right, guys, let's hit the college football playoffs just really quickly. The rankings came out a little bit later because they were a little delayed. Thank you very much, Matthew, the ultimate professional there. You see Oregon ranked at number 1, Ohio State's 2. Still got Texas at number 3 here, Penn State at 4. They got Notre Dame at 5, Miami at 6, Georgia 7, Tennessee at 8. They got SMU at 9. Indiana drops down to 10. They got Boise State at 11 and Clemson at 12. When you break down the seeding in the bracket, you will get Oregon, Texas, Miami, and Boise State with the bye. And then your first round matchups will include Ohio State versus Arizona State, just as it stands right now. That's a 5 versus a 12. You get a 6 and 11. Penn State versus Indiana, 7 versus 10. Notre Dame versus SMU, and Georgia versus Tennessee at 8 and 9. All right, gentlemen, what are your thoughts? Right now, Longhorns got the bye in the latest college football playoff rankings.
I gotta say, I would love to be. I would love to be the 5th or 6th seed. I think that's better than being the 1st or 2nd seed. I mean, look at it.
Yeah.
Would you rather be the 5th or 6th seed right now than 1 or 2?
That's a nice favorable route.
In the sense that
Arizona State, did they go to overtime with Texas State, or is that just my imagination?
No, they won that game. Arizona State, I think, has that same kind of quality of South Carolina right now, where they're playing some of the better ball in their conference. I mean, I think they've won 6 in a row. They're still not a team that's going to match up well with Ohio State on a talent perspective, but they're playing, to your point, to be the 5th seed. Ohio State would have to probably lose in the Big Ten championship game, right? And so that means you're playing 8-9 straight weeks if you're Ohio State. I still think you'd rather be the 2 seed, at least get that one bye. And if you're the 2 seed here, I don't think you're complaining at all about who you're shaped up with on that side of the bracket. Really, if you're looking at Oregon right now as the number 1 seed saying, I got to go play Georgia or Tennessee, oh, cut me a break. I'm the number 1 team in the country, right? That's not what number 1 seed should be.
If you're 1 or 2, that's what I'm trying to say to you. If you're 1 or 2, I would rather be 5 or 6 than 1 or 2. And wouldn't you rather have to beat Indiana to go play Miami?
I see the argument.
That's what I'm trying to. Wouldn't you rather be Ohio State? Or wouldn't you rather have to beat Arizona State and then go beat Boise State, and all of a sudden you're in the semifinals?
Yeah, that'd be sweet. Sweet path.
I think I'd rather just make the quarterfinals from the jump and then say, you know what, give me whoever's remaining. And for Texas here, Notre Dame or SMU, that's the same way as saying, okay, we start with Arizona, but we get a week off, we get some rest, we don't have to beat ourselves up one more time. Who knows what happens? That's 60 more minutes for a Quinshon Judkins, a Jeremiah Smith, a quarterback, for an injury to occur. And that's not what you want to have happen, right? I think at this point, you just got to make it to the next rung on the ladder before I think you play for the bye all the way through.
They need to redo the seeds where the conference championship winners get a bye, because this is trash. No offense. I mean, it's trash that Miami and Boise get third. It's just, it's not fair. It's not right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They want to get some wiggle room, I think, like some to kind of play with the 12 teams. But I kind of agree with you. I almost like they should just make it easy. Win your conference championship, you get your bye. Done. But Ohio State's out path to the title, though. Yeah. I mean, I'm with you though, Bobby. That's a pretty favorable path to the title if you can get it. All right, let's. I know we're getting close to the end of our live stream, so let's thank one more sponsor before we get done for the evening. Let's thank Mark Saunders and his team for being a part of our team.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects it all? Here's some good news. Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders is serving the Austin and Round Rock area and all of Texas. He's the only insurance agent you need. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. Call Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. Are you in good hands? With more than 35 years of experience, you will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders. If you're looking for someone local to the Austin, Round Rock area and all of Texas, give him a call. Once again, that's 512-218-8571. Seen Mark a few times this year at football games and other get-togethers. Please give him a shout, 512-218-8571.
All right. Thank you to Mark Saunders, and appreciate him for supporting On Texas Football, and appreciate all you guys for participating tonight in our live stream. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of the questions. Make sure we got all the super chats here. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much, Matthew. We appreciate that. Trevor Bell says, you guys think we'll see some Sark trick plays this game, reincorporate the ending around or the double pass? We have not seen as many trick plays this year, I feel like, from Sark, right?
Ever since he threw the double pass twice in a game against Oklahoma, he's been pretty cut and dry with it. Rod, maybe we'll have to go back to the well to predict something else in this game. Yeah, we were pretty close predicting that double pass touchdown from Matthew Golden there against Oklahoma. So I think so. I think this is a game where momentum is big, and what flips momentum more than anything? Splash plays, more specifically trick plays. Now you got to be smart with it because that can backfire just as easily as it can work for you. But I do think you'll see something up their sleeve that we haven't seen so far this year.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about what that could be. Yeah, with Sark, I'm with you. And Sark brags about working on trick plays and then saying he doesn't like to work on trick plays in practice without using them in the game. Because he said players don't practice it with the same enthusiasm when the coaches never use them. So if he got in the bag, Sark is going to use it. All right. Thank you, Trevor, for the super chat. Thank all you guys for all the super chats. Really appreciate you guys tonight. Show went by quickly, and that's because we're having so much fun because of all your participation. Thanks to Billy Liucci. I know all y'all out there didn't enjoy Billy Liucci, but we had some fun with Billy Liucci, so we appreciate him joining us from TexAgs. Also, thanks to Matthew behind the scenes, guys. Matthew does such a great job. He's a real MVP. And thank you to all of our sponsors as well. Obviously, Mark Saunders and his team, really appreciative from him for being a part of our family, but also the carrotconcierge.com, DG Construction as well, and also Hardgrove Roofing. Thank you very much to those sponsors. For Bobby, who does a great job. Thank you, Bobby, for all of your hard work. Aggies are lame. Good night. Hey, you know what? Yes, right. I know you said, what do we say about the Aggies? Would you say that they're lame? I mean, OU sucks. It's pretty easy. What time is it? Do we remember? It's been so long. What do we say about the Aggies
Back in the day, we had Aggie jokes. I don't even know if they do have Aggie jokes. Do they have Aggie jokes still, CJ, when you were in school? Was that a thing?
Not any that I know.
Oh, we would have like a whole week of Aggie jokes, basically.
Yeah, a whole treasure trove. Yeah,
we do a week of radio shows and everybody's throw Aggie jokes. So maybe this week, okay, guys, tomorrow have your Aggie jokes ready to go. We got to figure out a way to get in the right mindset for Hate Week. So Aggie jokes, have them ready to go. They're easy. I mean, Anybody can come up with those things.
They
All
write
right,
themselves, Rod.
They write themselves. Thanks, Bobby. Thank you, CJ. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you guys out there for watching and listening. And until next time, hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em.